Lawmakers are debating a proposal to rename the Russell Senate office building after the late Senator John McCain. But Google Maps didn't wait for the senators to decide. Google Maps website temporarily displayed the McCain Senate office building. Google says the edit was suggested by a local user. It's since been changed back. Senior Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergram looks into the budding controversy over renaming the building and the tense history behind it.
Just across the street from the Capitol, 35 senators and 6 committees keep their offices in the Russell Senate office building, including the suite used by John McCain and the Armed Services Committee, which he chaired. It's named after Richard Russell, a Democratic senator from Georgia for 38 years last century, arguably the Senate's most powerful member for a time. Russell muscled through FDR's New Deal. He was a staunch anti-communist, but he was also a segregationist who repeatedly filibustered civil rights resolutions, even blocking bills banning lynchings. We believe the system of segregation is a reason to preserve peace and harmony between the races, said Russell. Russell may have been a Democrat, but Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer wants to strip Russell's name off the building and rename it after a Republican, John McCain.
It's only fitting that his name should adorn a physical institution of the Senate, particularly one that housed the Armed Services Committee.
South Carolina's Tim Scott is the African-American Republican in the Senate.
Having a building named after him makes a lot of sense to me.
But not everyone's on board.
This is a question of making sure that however John is honored, I don't want to establish a precedent that we can unhonor somebody in the future.
Here's what I hope we'll do. Instead of worrying about what to name for him, which we should name something or a bunch of things, is let's be more like him.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wants a bipartisan coalition to determine how to honor McCain. One Senate source tells Fox they think they should name something new after the Arizona Republican.
Of course, the Russell Building wasn't always named after Richard Russell. It used to just be called the Senate Office Building, or SOB for short. One close friend of McCain joked to Fox that would fit the late senator perfectly. Shannon?
All right, Chad Pergram, thank you very much. Here to weigh in, Fox News contributor, former governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. Great to see you, Governor.
Thank you, Shannon. Great being here.
All right, I want to read something that Alabama Senator Richard Shelby had to say about this controversy. Now, he said, you want to get into that, you have to get into George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and most of our founding fathers, maybe with the exception of Hamilton. It's easy to prejudge what they should have done. We didn't live in that era, talking about stripping Russell's name off the building. But is that the end game for some folks anyway?
I think the big question is, are they doing this to get rid of Richard Russell's name, or are they doing it to honor John McCain? If they're doing it to honor John McCain, that is a wonderful thing to do. Is an American hero. This man served his country his entire life in ways that were beyond the call of duty. I mean, he is truly somebody who understood what sacrifice and service was all about. And any way to honor him, I've got no problem with. But I think people ought to be honest about it. And if Chuck Schumer, who I really doubt is all that concerned about honoring John McCain as much as he is creating some type of racial tension over Richard Russell's name, despite the fact that Russell was a Democrat. I don't know if Schumer remembers that or not, as were most of the segregationists that pushed against the civil rights legislation. But this is really one of those issues that if it's done to give John McCain a place of honor, then I applaud and would say I'm all for it.
Well, and as his buddy Senator Lindsey Graham said, yeah, we should name stuff after him, but Lindsey Graham also thinks folks should act like him. So they'll debate that on Capitol Hill as well. I want to ask you, too, about all of this recent criticism of social media and that there are people who are trying to silence conservatives when it comes to these things. I wanted to point to a case of something that's going on at Facebook. David French writes about this in Facebook's Conservatives Find Their Courage. He says, a senior engineer named Brian Emerge, or you can correct me, Brian, please let me know how to say it, invited colleagues to join a group called FBers for Political Diversity. And the New York Times reports more than 100 people have joined. Indeed, the Times reports that angry colleagues have also tried to appeal to Facebook to shut down the group. So far, they've failed. Quoting the Times, the new group has upset other Facebook employees who said its online postings were offensive to minorities. So someone inside has recognized they have a diversity problem when it comes to political thought and is trying to do something about it. Not everyone's happy.
I think it's pretty fair to say that Facebook is not exactly the Baskin-Robbins of social media where you have 31 different flavors. You've got one flavor, and it's liberal. It's left of center. And they've been pretty clear about that. Jack Dorsey at Twitter has acknowledged that the people who work for him are really to the left. I think Mark Zuckerberg, when he was before Congress, even though he said it's not our goal, it's not what we try to do, you just can't deny that the people working in the Silicon Valley are not exactly probably going to the same point of view that maybe somebody like me would go to. But I think these big social media companies, they're going to face one of three things. Either mitigation, they're going to dial back on themselves and try to be more fair and upfront. They're going to have litigation. They're going to get sued. They're going to get sued for manipulating the news, like some people are accusing the Russians of, or they're going to have regulation. So it's mitigation, litigation, regulation, but it's not going to stay the same. It can't. These companies have gotten too big. They're exerting way too much influence over people's thinking, how they vote, and how they're gathering their news. It's coming to a head, and probably soon.
Well, several of their leaders of these big companies are due on Capitol Hill next week. Apparently, Google's not sending their top person, and at least one member of the committee has said, well, and this is a Democrat, we'll leave that seat blank and open for them. So we'll see how this goes on the Hill next week. In the meantime, Governor, thank you for weighing in. Always good to see you.